Member of Calgary-Lougheed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, the fentanyl crisis is bearing its ugly face in every community across the province. And we're currently facing at least a death a day from fentanyl itself, and double that if we include other opioids. We have people in the gallery today who know how truly tragic that is. And that's why our Progressive Conservative caucus stands united with all other opposition parties and hopefully the government as well to urge them to hold an emergency debate on the provincial response to the opioid crisis. Mr. Speaker, I've abbreviated my remarks. I will give you all the citations right now. First of all, this is not before the House in any form of a bill debate, and the most reasonable opportunity is right here and right now. According to Beauchesne's 387 to 398, I'll only read a sentence, regarding motions to adjourn the House to discuss an important matter, Standing Order 37A states that the matter states that proposed for discussion must relate to a genuine emergency calling for immediate and urgent consideration. And if the skyrocketing number of opioid-related deaths in our province does not constitute a genuine emergency, I don't know what does. We're seeing an increase in deaths caused by fentanyl, which is 57 times higher than we experienced just a few years ago. Beauchesne's 390 states that a motion for emergency debate must meet the test of urgency. That is, when the ordinary opportunities provided by the rules of the House do not permit the subject to be brought on early enough, and the public interest demands that the discussion take place immediately. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the well-being of Albertan families, and the lives of Albertans are at stake, and nothing could be more urgent than this. Opioid addiction has been raised in question period in previous sessions, as you know, many times, and we still have yet to have a proper debate and focused attention of this House on the crisis and those it affects every day. There is no government motion on the order paper asking for a debate on this very important issue, which there certainly must be. There was no mention of the immediate and continued pressing issue of fentanyl in Alberta in the throne speech last week, but I'm sure you noticed that, Mr. Speaker. On to Beauchesne's 389, which states the matter must be so pressing that the public interest will suffer if not given immediate action. I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that if this issue, if not dealt with in a real and comprehensive way, immediately will be nothing short of suffering to the public interest. In fact, it is much more pressing than that. It is indeed a matter of life and death. From Beauchesne's 113, most decisions based on these conditions are bound to be subjective, and few clear-cut decisions can be made. In making his ruling, the Speaker may, on occasion, take into account the general wish of the House to have a debate. Now, Mr. Speaker, as you may well know, thousands of families of current and, I dare say, present and future victims of opioid addiction are depending on your decision, sir. This matter is urgent enough to proceed. Our guests here today will attest to that. I urge you to consider that this very important matter has escalated since, and another quotation, from the Premier herself, who declared on December 13, 2016, Hansard, page 2578, and I quote, "The rise of illicit opiates, including fentanyl and the more powerful carfentanil, has created a public health crisis here in Alberta and, quite frankly, across the country." I don't think it needs to be much more clear than that, but from Hansard 116, March 14, 2016, the Health Minister called fentanyl a deadly threat, and on March 19, 2016, Hansard 1055, the Health Minister said, "The situation with fentanyl is something that we are dealing with in Alberta very seriously. We've been doing so for many months, and it has been a year since that statement." Lastly, from the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, page 695, an application was approved for an emergency debate on the sudden and unexpected revelation of events which had taken place in the past, in that they might precipitate a course of conduct which, if allowed to continue unchecked, would certainly classify itself as an emergency and as a matter of urgent consideration. Many feel the system has failed Albertans who are addicted to opioids, and we need to do everything that we can do to ensure that this problem does not get any worse. And we can start that right now, Mr. Speaker. It is a public health crisis. We must deal with it in this Assembly as a state of emergency. Mr. Speaker, earlier today, all opposition parties stood together to call on the government to take a proactive and coordinated approach to dealing with this issue. Our province is already in an emergency when it comes to the opioid crisis, and it's time we treat it as such. So, Mr.
Point of
Speaker,
order noted.
sorry, last
Point of order noted. Is that right?
one sentence. Mr. Speaker, I ask that you rule in the favour of this motion, and I urge the members of the Assembly to vote to move forward with this very